Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified when we have a new video ready. Now we're only a month into 2018 and we've already seen a whole bunch of brand new smartphones launch in India in the mainstream segment. Among this is the Samsung Galaxy On7 Prime, and this is kind of a big deal for Samsung since it debuts the Samsung Mall app. Now we'll get to the app in a little bit, but first let's talk a bit about the phone. Now this is a mainstream offering that starts at 12,990 rupees, and in terms of specifications and features is very similar to Samsung's own Galaxy On Next and the older J7 Prime. So let's see if this new offering has anything special to offer apart from this new app. Now the phone uses a metal unibody chassis which feels pretty sturdy and robust when you hold it. Now the back doesn't really attract too many fingerprints, so it's easy to keep clean. However, the front does. Now looking at it from the front, it does look pretty attractive thanks to the 2.5D curved glass. However, the overall design is a bit boring, and it also does remind us of the J7 Prime, which Samsung launched all the way back in 2016. In fact, if you take a look at all the layout of the ports and the buttons, they are pretty identical to the J7 Prime. The only thing that's really different here is the fonts on the capacitive buttons, but apart from these, it's really hard to tell the two apart. The power and the volume button line up pretty well against your fingers when you hold it, and they are pretty comfortable to use. On the left side, we have two slots for the two SIM cards and a dedicated slot for a micro SD, so you don't have to compromise on a second SIM. The speaker is placed on the right side on the top, so there are less chances of you blocking it when you're using the phone in landscape view for gaming or watching a video. Now the capacitive buttons in the front aren't backlit unfortunately, which is a bit annoying, but you do get a fingerprint sensor in the home button and that works pretty well. Now the 5.5-inch display has a full HD resolution, so images and text look quite sharp and the colors aren't very exaggerated thanks to the PLS TFT LCD display. However, the phone does lack an ambient light sensor, and what that means is you will have to adjust the brightness manually each time you go from a light to a dark environment. I mean, seriously Samsung? The Galaxy On7 Prime is powered by Samsung's very own Exynos 7870 octa-core SoC. Now benchmark performance is strictly average, and this kind of shows in everyday usage as well. Now we had the 4GB RAM version with us, and despite this the UI still doesn't feel too snappy. Things like multitasking and scrolling through Bixby's home screen can feel jerky, which is something we didn't like. Now you get 64GB of storage with this version compared to 32GB of storage and 3GB of RAM with the base variant. Connectivity is pretty basic too, and Samsung has really skimped on the sensors in this phone as you only get an accelerometer and a proximity sensor. You don't even get a compass, so you can't really see which direction you're facing when using Google Maps. Software is the older Android 7.1.1 Nougat, but sadly, the Android security patch hasn't really been updated since August of last year. Now not having Oreo is one thing, but Samsung could have at least kept the Android security patch up to date before launching the phone. The On7 Prime uses Experience UI, which should be familiar to anyone who's used a recent Samsung smartphone. You get Samsung Pay Mini, which works with UPI and digital wallets, but not credit cards, and the usual apps from Google and Microsoft. Now Samsung Mall is a real specialty of this smartphone. It's basically an online shopping aggregator with the Bixby's visual search engine baked in. Right now, Samsung has tied up with online shopping portals like Jabong, Amazon India, ShopClues and Tata Click. So when you search for a product in the Mall app, it'll pull the relevant results from these sites. Now the Mall app itself doesn't really store any payment or delivery information, so when you want to make a purchase, you're redirected to that portal's web checkout page. Now the Mall app only shows you some basic information like a product description and a few user reviews among other details. But if you want additional information, like for instance if a product qualifies for Amazon Prime, you'll only get that information once you've checked out of the Mall app and you're in Amazon's webpage. Visual search and voice search are both supported in the Mall app. Now in our experience, visual search turned out to be more of a miss than a hit. It did manage to recognize some objects and throw up relevant results, but most of the time it did not. You can also perform visual search from the photos that are already there in your photo gallery, or you can even access this feature via the camera app. Now while this is a neat feature to have, it definitely seems like a work in progress. And even though the On7 Prime is currently the only phone that supports it, there's no reason why Samsung wouldn't bring this to its other models as well. Now one of the things we really liked about the phone is that it doesn't heat up easily. Even with heavy camera usage or gaming, we didn't really find the phone getting too hot when using it outdoors. Speaking of games, casual games do run pretty fine. However, heavier titles like Asphalt 8 Airborne do have choppy frame rates. 4G and VoLTE are also supported, and the phone also has provision for Wi-Fi calling, so you will be able to use this feature once your carrier supports it. The 16:9 aspect ratio will soon seem a bit dated, with 18:9 phones becoming more popular, but it's still good for watching videos. We didn't have any issues playing back high bitrate Full HD videos either. The speaker isn't great, but with headphones, audio is good. Coming to the cameras, we have 13 megapixel sensors on the front and the back of the phone, both having f1.9 apertures. Now, autofocus for the rear camera is quite sluggish even under good lighting, so capturing moving subjects is tough. Details are decent in landscapes, but the camera often fails to get the exposure right, leaving you with burnt out portions in the image. There is HDR, but the end result isn't very good. In close-ups, the wide aperture lens does help in getting good depth of field, but the colors aren't very accurate. Subtle hues and finer details in the textures are often lost. The quality of recorded video is strictly average too, and there's no electronic stabilization, so you do end up with shaky videos if you move about. Low light performance is often subpar with blurry details in landscapes and slow autofocus. The front camera is decent in daylight but not so good under low light conditions. You also get a palm gesture for capturing selfies and a fun little sticker pack. Selfie focus is a feature that mimics portrait mode effect, but it doesn't really come out too well all the time. The camera app also has a social feature, which lets you share the pictures you've taken directly to Facebook or a contact in WhatsApp. It works pretty seamlessly as well. The Geo-like feature basically overlays a sticker on your photos depending on the location where you're shooting at. Battery life is good for a phone with a 3300 mAh battery, as we were able to go an entire day on a single charge. However, there's no fast charging here, so charging the phone completely from zero takes nearly 3 hours with a bundle adapter. After spending sufficient time with the Samsung Galaxy On7 Prime, it now makes sense why Samsung chose this phone to debut its mall app on. Because without it, the On7 Prime simply isn't a compelling enough offering. This version that we have will set you back 14,990 rupees, which is expensive for a phone that lacks some extremely basic features such as an ambient light sensor. Other than the decent battery life, it's really hard to think of any other area in which this phone excels, which makes it difficult to recommend. Samsung Mall is a neat idea, but definitely feels more like a work in progress, and the visual search feature that Samsung is boasting about still needs a lot of work. At 15,000 rupees, there's always the Moto G5S Plus or even the Xiaomi Mi A1. So thanks for watching our review, and for all things tech, log on to Gadgets360.com.